Welcome to the Clusterf. This is the real spiritual journey. No fluff, no bypassing, pure honesty. This world is a total clusterfuck. Every Sunday, we're going to embrace the cluster and attempt to unfuck it. And we attempt to unfuck it, not to perfect the world, but to better understand who we are and what the truth is. When we can sit back, observe, discuss, and analyze this giant clusterfuck, perhaps we can better understand ourselves and come up with simple solutions. Visit the website at theclusterfuck.com for links to all of the streaming and podcast platforms and social media. Now let's get ready to unfuck the cluster. Well, everybody, it is another Sunday in this giant clusterfuck planet, and I'm not apologizing for the name of the podcast. We've had a few people unsubscribe lately, but if that offends you and you're not offended by the rest of the planet and all the activities going on instead, I don't know what to say to you. Good luck with whatever you do, but please, if you're streaming by now and you haven't already subscribed, support the channel, of course, and click subscribe on the button. Thumbs up, of course, always helps the show stream. I don't think I'll ever be streaming live because there's a lot of shows out there, they will censor their words and they won't say juice box. I didn't say it either, just because the first 10 minutes are a little rough on live stream, but I try to kind of walk a fine line, I try to say it because it's proper English. Like, I don't like saying unalive instead of what they really did, murdered or killed. I don't like doing that stuff. I should be able to use the proper English language in its proper context. That's the kind of show we are here. And remember, it's always observing, not absorbing. We are in a weird state. I have a great guest. Speaking of cluster, the world is clusters, so are the theme parks. We're going to be having Walter Bosley on in a few seconds here. I'll bring him in, and we are going to talk about Disneyland and strangeness and weirdness and maybe some conspiracy theories you have or may have not heard about before. So, of course, Kenneth says, my grandmother had the same owl, the green one or the brown one. The green one is newer. The brown one on the wall is retro 70s. That one is new. The white one's new as well. We're all controlled through language. It is so true. Welcome, Muse. Welcome, Kenneth. Jonacide was around. I hope you guys are all showing up. Remember, thumbs up, subscribe. We're going to the world of Disney today. And I wanted to talk about the show. Walter, by the way, before we get in, I want to say to everybody, if you are interested in buying Walter's books, please go to his site on lulu.com. Do not go to the website. Go to lulu.com. All his books are exclusively there until he sorts the website stuff out. So go to lulu.com. You can get his book that is the Latitude 33 in Disneyland. Oh, the green owl is from Hobby Lobby. I'm so Canadian. I forget the name of every store in America. It's amazing how I'm Canadian, but I'm also like a recluse. So people will say stuff, and I'll be like, the hobby what am I doing? Anyways, back on track to Disneyland. We got Gabriel Light Traveler here. Good to see you guys all. But Disneyland. Disneyland. I got to stay focused. Remember, the website is theclusterfuck.com. You can find all my links. Go to lulu.com for all of Walter's books. He can update you on anything when he comes in. And we are going to be going on to Disneyland. So I don't want to keep Walter too long. He's been waiting. So let's talk about what's going on with Disneyland, portals, and other strange anomalies. And save your questions, guys. We're going to do some talking. And then if you guys have questions, pop them up and I'll bring them on towards the second half of the show. But let's get on with Walter. Welcome to the show, Walter.
Hey, Melissa. Thanks for having me. This is great. Sorry I missed last weekend. Time
Happens.
screwiness. Hey, you have your owls. I'm going to reach over here to the shelf. I have my Cthulhu.
Oh, a lot of people have accused me of worshiping Moloch.
Oh, boy.
And I am so sick of these elites tainting the natural beauty of owls.
What? Yeah, exactly.
Stuff. I'm claiming the owl for what it is. It's a creature that lives on this planet and is beautiful. So fuck you, elites, and your Moloch.
Thank you. Hey, you know what? The same to the people that accuse you of worshiping Moloch. I'm getting sick of the accusers and the paranoid, everything's evil crowd. As people know, because that oh god, that is ridiculous. So screw them.
Well, there are people who worship this stuff, but guess what? They're billionaires and they're elite. They're not me.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So, I got somebody tell me one time, came at me because I have Empire of the Wheel in development to be a TV series, and because I like doing movies, that something about me and my evil Hollywood friends who eat babies. I'm like, but what? Anyway, go ahead.
Do you have evil Hollywood friends that eat babies?
Not that I'm aware of.
It's funny. There are bad people in Hollywood, but most of the people who work behind the scenes, most people are just coming. They're the lighting guy. They're just coming to work to make a paycheck. They have no idea what's going on. They don't.
Yeah.
It's sad. All right. So I guess the best place to start with the Disneyland thing would be, and people in the audience may have heard this before, but it would be to kind of ask you why you decided to write about Disneyland. What is your experience that got you to talk about Disneyland and the strange location that it's built on?
Well, in February of 1981, I was a senior in high school, and anybody who's grown up in Southern California and remembers those days knows that you could go to Disneyland anytime you wanted. Now you have to pick a day, I think, and it's reserve it. But back then you could just go, and if you went on a weekday, it was virtually empty by 6 p.m. It was not crowded. It was just something you did spontaneously. So we did that. One day we were off school for whatever reason. So we go to Disneyland. It was a Wednesday. And that evening, sometime around 9 o'clock, we were riding the carousel. I'm one of those nerds. I ride everything. I ride Mr. Toad. I ride all the kiddie. I just ride it all. And so we're riding the carousel around 9 p.m. Now, those of you familiar with John Keel's works, as soon as you hear me say Wednesday, 9 p.m., that should alert you, because that's what he identified as that magic hour, Wednesday in the 9 o'clock hour, wherever you're at. And I saw this old man watching the carousel go around, an old man with white hair, white beard. I'd placed him around 70 years old, and he was wearing a black suit, white shirt, no tie. And he was just watching the carousel go around, and he stood out, not the least of which was because he's wearing black and white, right? And then finally, on a spin around, he wasn't there. Okay, whatever. So we get off the carousel, and we start, for those of you familiar with Disneyland geography, we take the path, the back path, I call it, between Dumbo and Mr. Toad, and it leads back to the teacups. So we get back there, and I see this old man in the black suit and white shirt sitting on a bench. Now, back then, there was a bench, and it was near a pylon underneath the Matterhorn track. the monorail track next to the Matterhorn. I don't know why, but I felt compelled to strike strike up a conversation with the old guy. And I had a couple of friends with me. And we got to chatting, and he said it was his first time at the park. You would have thought this guy was like a 9 year old seeing the most amazing thing he'd ever seen. He was just in love with the place. But this was in the days also of most people got ticket books, but you could buy what's called the passport, which was the way it is now, unlimited.
Like
You
a
could
daily
ride.
pass you got everywhere.
Yeah. Back then you had the ticket books, and depending upon how many tickets you had, determined what you rode. Um, a lot of us old Disneyland veterans think that that was actually a better way to see the park in retrospect. So he was down to just a couple of the A tickets or something, and he wanted to go on It's a Small World, but he didn't have the ticket for it. So I said, "Come on, we've got an extra one, between us." So we wrote "It's a Small World" with him, of all things. And he was just wide eyed in wonder. The rest of us were like, "Oh, here's that song again."
I
But
know what
he's
you
like,
mean.
"Oh, wow." So afterwards, we walked back to the place where we met him. Now, think about this was near the teacups, and the teacups are right next to the Alice in Wonderland ride, and the teacups are the Mad Tea Party from Alice. So think of the whole Alice in Wonderland thing, right?
Right.
There he is, maybe sitting outside the rabbit hole. And so when we part, um, I don't know why. I just felt like, you know what? I come here a lot, come here all the time. I gave him my passport ticket, pinned it on his lapel with a Donald Duck pin, said, "Here you go. With this, you can ride whatever you want, as many times as you want." And there was still like an hour and a half before the park closed. You would have thought I'd given him a pot of gold. This guy was just so grateful and oh my gosh. So off he goes back into Fantasyland, and walks around a corner, and that's it. We're done. My friends and we head off to Tomorrowland, and I feel like I did something nice for an old guy. But in the conversation, he says his name is Alfred. There I go in recounting a story, leaving out G, the important key. But he says his name is Alfred, and to this day, I can see his face as we're talking to him. So we went away from that, and at that time and over the years, I thought, there was something odd, not in a bad way, but just something significant about meeting this old guy at Disneyland. And 11 years later, I'm working for the FBI in Manhattan. And at lunchtime, I go to the Coliseum bookstore, which used to be down by Columbus Circle in Broadway. And I'm in our favorite section with the UFOs and the weird phenomena. And I look at this book, and it's about ley lines. And I had first heard of ley lines like in 1986, connected with some guys who'd done research about UFOs and other weird phenomena being associated with the intersections of ley lines. So I was familiar with that idea that where they intersect, strange things are seen. So I'm looking at this book titled The Old Straight Track. It's it's the first known book written about ley lines. Okay, written in 1925 by Alfred Watkins. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I open up the book, and there's a picture of Alfred Watkins, and it's the man I met at Disneyland 11
The
years
guy,
prior.
the Alfred.
It's him. I'm looking at this, and I'm going, no way. And his name's Alfred. And then I'm looking further at the book, and I realize he died in like 1935, somewhere around there. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what the heck? And that just further convinced me that something weird had happened when I met this guy at Disneyland. And that stayed with me for years. And finally, in 2006, I was sitting in with a friend on his show, Greg Bishop, on Radio Mysterioso, and we were talking about Disneyland. And we happened to look up on, I think, Wikipedia or whatever, and we saw the latitude, 33.8 8118 or 1881, something like that. Or like, or 33 degrees. I thought, whoa, there's that magic latitude. And from there, I realized I've really got to dive into this and investigate this deeper. And it ended up, of course, leading to the book.
Right. And the 33 number, you
Mm-hmm.
hear that everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
In significance, you heard it in Charlie Kirk assassination. You just hear it all throughout Masonic stuff. They
Mm-hmm.
do code. Do you think that 33 latitude, it was chosen? Do you think it's connected with all the other sort of 33 signals that we see in society, or with logos or businesses or
I
whatever event it could be?
I think the things are associated to it because it's it is a thing that's measured in science. So I think things are placed there, and I'm wrong
Mhm.
about the number. It was 32.8118, which is essentially 33, right?
Right. It's just off.
Yeah, it's just slightly off. But I think things are purposely placed there because I do think that a long time ago, before Western history, before Western science and technology, somebody understood that that area of the Earth, technically, it's a band between 30 and 40 degrees north latitude around the entire planet where some of the weirdest, most fascinating things can be found, but specifically at 33. I've heard some other people talk about the 37th degree, but 33 seems to be the big one. And I think the Masons, that's where Masonry gets it from, is because
Mhm.
they're aware to some degree of this.
Of the importance. I heard that Iran and Iraq, there's areas that lie on the 33rd degree
Mhm.
latitude that are of importance to certain people. I don't know
Well,
if that's true or not. I haven't totally delved into that one, but it wouldn't surprise me.
when we went to Iraq um, in between 2003 and how many years did that go? Uh, yeah, I was there in November of 2003, and uh, I'd been there a couple of weeks, and I'm standing. Well, we're driving. We're meeting with the Italian Carabinieri, their military unit. My team leader and I in Nasiriyah. Okay, and I had never done the linguistic math. Nasiriyah. It's the ancient city of the Ur, and I learned this the same day that we're out there driving, and there's the ziggurat, which I've seen in documentaries and in books and stuff. And I'm like to my buddy Eric, I'm like, Eric, and he goes, yeah, let's go over there. We'll climb to the top. I'm like, whoa! So I'm standing at the top of the ziggurat of and that's when it really sinks in. We're here for some unstated mysterious purpose, like I've heard we are, and it does have to do with probably
Right.
lost technology, which by the way, which I'd first heard about in 91 or 90 or 91 during the first Gulf War when an FBI agent I worked with, she was a technical expert, and she's the first one that told me that Saddam Hussein was attempting to rebuild the Tower of Babel.
Of Babel, right?
Yeah. And so that kind of planted the seed over the years. And then my mentor backed up. Well, yeah, there's all sorts of shit like
So,
that.
what is the history of building Disneyland? Like, do you think that they had some kind of similar intention as Saddam Hussein building the Tower of Babel?
The guy who oversaw the engineering of physical Disneyland, I think he totally had some type of mystical agenda. And that was a guy named C.V. Wood. He worked for, here it comes, SRI, the Stanford Research Institute, who are, that's Hal Puthoff and all those guys. Well,
Right.
the guy who the Disneys hired to manage the engineering of physical Disneyland worked for them. And if any organization was aware of the ley line to Telluric current um, in that territory, it was SRI. And he's the one that strongly recommended the Anaheim site. Disney's wanted to build it either in LA or out here in the Inland Empire, believe it or not. But he said,
Hmm.
no, you want to build it in Anaheim. And they give these reasons like, oh, the freeways are going to be built there and the population. No, no, no. I think it's because C.V. Wood knew that there was an intersection of three telluric currents, which, folks, that's another term
Okay.
for ley line.
Right. And that, because it's interesting that you saw that particular guy. It's like, why would he be there? Is there any theory on how he appeared there?
Alfred?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I say this in the book, it's one of three or four possibilities. And one of them is that he was somebody who looked identical to Alfred Watkins, who was planted as my personal trigger so that when I would learn about the ley lines, I would remember, I would, that I would recognize, hey, you know, something's going on here with Disneyland and this stuff, which later on, I did discover that there's the intersection of the three telluric currents. Another possibility is this group that I write about, this mysterious race of beings called by the Irish, the Tuatha Dé Danann. And they come from, in the lore, the tradition, they come from another dimension, and they're greatly responsible for a lot of the things we hear about the fairy folk. Check Joshua Cutchin's work to learn more about
Hmm.
that. So it could have been the Tuatha Dé Danann reaching out to me. I know that sounds self-aggrandizing, but they reach out to a lot of people. My
Right.
first encounter with them. And how I suspect that is when you give the fairy folk a gift just of your own free will, their reaction is just they love it. They say, "Oh, you're a good person. You're blessed." And remember, I gave him my unlimited passport, and I told you the reaction.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now the third, uh, a third possibility is that he was a tulpa, and this gets into time and space stuff. My mind connected to the future would learn about Alfred Watkins, would learn about this stuff. So at the time, my mind created this tulpa, and folks look up a tulpa if you want to understand what that means. It's a manifested being. The fourth possibility for years was my favorite, and that is this: that Alfred Watkins, back in, it was 1927 or 28 actually, that he was researching this, that back in 1928, he was investigating ley lines, stepped into an intersection, and was transported to Disneyland of 1981.
You know, I've heard, Walter, that the Russians did some pretty crazy time traveling experiments where they isolated you from like EMF in some room, and that they had people, after they went through this crazy, disorientating, almost vomiting, like literally see themselves in another time. And it wasn't like they were hallucinating, it was real. They could almost touch it. That they're saying that there was some kind of, not only did they time travel, but phenomena started to happen all around the town where they were running these experiments.
Mm,
So, do you think that there could be something really similar happening with the environment where people just see certain things from the past, and because of the conditions there with electromagnetics and
sure. Particularly where the intersections of these ley lines are. I recommend people look for the book. I published it. You can find it at the Lulu site. But Seshari wrote this. It's titled "The Handprint of Atlas," and he explains a lot of this stuff. And he has written further on it. But Philip K. Dick, the legendary science fiction author and thinker, he very notably was fascinated with Disneyland because he was having strange experiences associated with Disneyland also. Now, I didn't learn this until um, years or a few years after I wrote the Disneyland book. And I'm acquainted with Tessa, if those of you who know Tessa Dick. And what's interesting is I haven't had a lengthy conversation with her about Philip's weird experiences with Disneyland. And this might be part of the phenomenon. Um, Things that you think would be a no-brainer when meet up with someone, and occasionally I'll go up the hill and take her to lunch. Um, it's weird. It's almost like something clouds your mind from talking about certain things. I would have thought that I would have had an hours long conversation with her by now about PKD and Disneyland, but I haven't. Now he saw Rome, ancient Rome, and stuff like that while he lived in Fullerton. So
Really? It's almost like did he think he was time traveling
he
portal
thinks
wise?
he thinks that we're still living, or he thought that we were still living during the Roman Empire, and all this modern history and stuff is a construct that a lot of people would call like the Matrix.
Well, that's a mind fuck
Hmm.
on the
Indeed.
clusterfuck.
Yeah. Well, there's
Wow.
those people today who think that several centuries have just been fabricated, that we're actually only in 16 or 1700 something or whatever, and that the calendar readjustment done by, I think, the church, maybe the Roman Empire before it. Well, the church, when we say the church, we mean the Roman Catholic Church. And what is that but just the Roman Empire in a different costume? That they did that to us.
Well, everything from my perspective of researching is really fake anyways. Like everything is fake. Like all the narratives, it's kind of like you go to Plato's cave, like we're all being pulled into shadows on the wall and
Mhm.
everything is a shadow on the wall and we just don't realize how much is a shadow on the wall and we don't want to stop looking because we think it's real. So
Right.
then that kind of messes with you like, well, what is real? Like what's going on here? Like is that guy real or is Walter real? Is the guy in Disneyland more real than Walter? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe my friends and I in Disneyland were a construct of Alfred Watkins. I,
Did you ever hear that story? Because there's multiple Disney. I always wonder if the other Disney worlds or lands or France have some kind of weird thing too. Because there was that story. I think it was called I can't. There was these two French ladies, and they were in Paris, and they
oh
were
yes,
walking, and they resaw. They went back to like the Palace of Versailles and
yeah,
like history. Do you
I
think
love
that's
those stories.
real? It's a bizarre story.
I think that some of those stories are real, absolutely. Uh, it whether it's where the veil is thin, between time events, or whether everything really is happening all at the same time from a particular perspective. I do think stories like that are real, and I became even more convinced. My one ghost experience was an audible ghost. I was in a house that my uncle and aunt used to own. It's now a historical site in Prattville, Alabama, called the Pope Golson House, Golsen. Look it up. I'm intimately familiar with that house. For several years, I spent many nights there. And Christmas season of '98, I'm awake reading at night. It's like 11:30, and I hear a woman crying. And I look in on my aunt and uncle. They're sound asleep. I'm still hearing the crying coming from downstairs. I go check on my cousin. She's sound asleep. I'm still hearing the crying downstairs. And we're the only people in the house. So I stood at the top of the second floor landing. There's a picture of it right there, right outside the room I used to see. And I'm listening to this woman sob as clear as you're hearing my voice. And it's giving me goosebumps now because it was so clearly real. This wasn't a TV. This wasn't anything. But I didn't go downstairs to take a look. My uncle the next morning said, "Yeah, that was a woman whose infant died during the Christmas season. I want to say in the 1870s, something like that." And he said, "Every year, at this time of year, she'll appear." He goes, "If he says you should have walked downstairs, all you would have seen was her sitting in a rocking chair, holding the baby and crying." He laughed at me. He says she's not like a monster or anything. Just that's what you would have seen. So all that to say, I really thought, okay, these were times. Maybe ghosts are times. The veil is thin, and it's the imprint of her having been there, or maybe I'm seeing into or hearing into the past, or the past is seeping into the present. And so I became even more impressed with stories like you mentioned about the two ladies at Versailles.
Yeah, we had one on Vancouver Island in the city of Victoria. I drove up and down that street all the time, and it never happened to me. It's supposed to go back to an old country road,
Hmm.
and I never got to experience it. But there's myths like that all over the place where a road or somewhere will just suddenly transform back to somewhere else. And I'm wondering, you said, I mean, I know you have an interesting history with phenomena and your family and with a FBI and stuff, but maybe there's something to do with your own, I don't know, genetics, bloodline. Maybe things appear to you more. Do you think that is an element as well? Like, but other people saw him as well. Like, he wasn't just seen by you; he was seen by your friends too, right?
My friends saw him, and I think clearly other people. I'm guessing other people in the park were seeing him. Here's an interesting thing. I want to talk with those friends to see how much or if they remember the encounter.
If they remember it like you do.
If they remember it like I do, or if they remember it at all. Um, that wouldn't surprise me if they didn't. Of course, you have naysayer trolls out there. Oh, it didn't happen then.
Mm,
That's pea
no,
brains.
no. Not at all. I mean, you had another option where you talked about that it was a plant that it was a planted and put there. Why would someone plant it there for you, for that man, as a person to get your attention? Why would someone do that? Like, what would that be about?
To possibly get me to write the book, to start looking at the book. The idea of writing the book came years later, so I think the plant idea, and that falls under the first category, that it was somebody that
Mm,
looked just like him, to get me to start thinking on these things. And there's two ways you could go there, one of which is just to get a person to start thinking on these things, and for whatever the motive is outside myself. The other possibility is what you said, is that maybe I was supposed to follow this thread, this stream, and so yeah, it was planted,
right.
because we've talked about in the past. I too was a member of the GATE program, right? And
Right.
hey, let's identify the kids that are weird in that good way. And maybe that's why it would have been set up for me, is because I was one of those kids.
Mhm.
I don't know. I tend to be very egalitarian on strange experiences. I don't like to think I'm special. I believe anybody and everybody can
Mhm.
have these kinds of experiences, but
Yeah.
I people do
But
remind me, well, no, not everybody. So,
everybody could, but everybody doesn't. So
right,
obviously something was happening with you at the time. I mean, I've had experiences too. Like I lived in a haunted house where I would hear a man walking upstairs
right,
and you'd go there and there was nobody there and people had sighted him. I didn't see him, but I heard him,
yeah,
right?
exactly, and it's clear, right? And you
Clear as
there's
day. It was
there's no
actually in the
way.
middle of the day.
And there's
Right?
no way anybody's going to tell you that that didn't happen. They can go pound sand. That
Right, and
let
I
them
like, my
experience it.
cat, after she died, she came back and walked on my head while I was laying in bed. You're never convinced me that didn't happen. It was so real, and the electrical shock that went through my head, and I could feel her paws on my head, and she'd been dead for 2 weeks. You'll never convince me that never happened because I'm sorry it happened.
Well, you asked maybe why I had this experience. Um, the well, now I have to look back and say one of the most impactful experiences of my life, which up until that time it was singular. I still consider it singularly the life changing event for me, was in December of '79. It was on a weekend. It was a Sunday morning. It happened to be a Sunday morning. I woke up and everything was different. And I noticed everything was different. I woke up and the first thing I did was raise my hands, and I was looking at them. And my thought was, these are not my hands. And then I looked at the wall. Now remember, I never used drugs. It's a, but I'm
You
looking at the
you miss
wall.
you miss that part of culture?
Yeah, I didn't even start doing gummies till I got cancer a few years ago.
Right.
Anyway, I'm
Fair
looking at the
enough.
wall, and then I'm walking through the house, and it's like I'm surprised. This is my house, my home. This is my family, but it was like weird to see them. I'm like, well, there's my sisters. Oh, there's my mom. There's my dad. And at the time, it was this weird four-dimensional awakening. And years later, as I was figuring some things out on my own, and my mentor was teaching me certain things, and I learned certain things. I now think what it was I think that's a whole other subject for a whole other show, but I think it was a time jump. And the reason I said these are not my hands is they were my younger hands, right? It's like, wait a minute, these are my
Okay.
teenage hands, and then, whoa, there's my sisters, but they're young again. There's my mom, she's younger again, and there's my dad, he's alive again. I think that's what was going on. So there I was. I've said before, I think it was, um, and thank God I've passed this age, but um, I thought it was like my 61-year-old self had jumped back to my 16-year-old body. Now,
Now that's interesting because that goes with the idea that time is an illusion.
yeah, and now that I started talking about that a few years before I heard this guy who got very popular lying about secret space program, claiming
Oh, I
secret
think I know who
experience.
you're talking about.
Yeah, a real asshole. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
me.
we won't
Really not
talk
me.
about him. We don't want to get sued for some fake frivolous court case.
Exactly. But anyway, I just didn't want people to think I got that idea from the likes of him. That's something that I came to on my own. But now I had had that experience, is my point of bringing it up. So I'd had an awakening or some type of, okay, here I am, and something interdimensional went on. Now, years later, I asked my mentor, what happened to me? He says, he goes, you did something. I'm like, well, what did I do? Because you're not ready to know
No.
that yet. But so there I was, this weird awakening thing, and then a little over a year later, oh, and weird, even more weird stuff continued to happen. And then, of course, a little over a year later, I have this very impactful experience at Disneyland with Alfred and this weird stuff. So maybe what happened to me in December of '79 is what really opened the portal, so to speak, for me.
Right. Well, and I find that things will happen, but I find a lot of people may even have that could be linked to the Disneyland, that could be linked to 79. You may have even had something in utero or as a baby that you'll never remember. I think that's what happened to me. I think you have things happen like early on and it just separate it just and it could be trauma. Trauma makes psychic stuff everything. Like you could have traumas that cause certain it just caused certain things to develop in you as you do it
Years,
as a coping mechanism or something.
yeah, years ago, when I was working on my Empire of the Whale mystery, and Sesharie was creating these handmade maps for me of the United States and whatever region I needed, of telluric current. He had done one of the San Diego telluric spiral, which is huge. And looking at it on a map and looking at it, I told him, this is going to blow your mind. But my sisters were born here in the Inland Empire in a Loma Linda hospital. But I was the one, my parents, like, because of my dad's job, were living in San Diego at the time I was born. So I was born there. And what's interesting is um, where the hospital where I was born is on that spiral. The address I lived, both addresses I lived at during college in San Diego State are on that spiral. So I was born on that spiral, a telluric current spiral. And when I returned to San Diego multiple times, I returned to places on that spiral. So maybe that has something to do with what you suggested a moment ago, is
Mhm.
something from birth, being born in that energy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, with Disneyland,
Mhm.
were do you think there's a specific area of Disneyland that you were at, or have you heard of strange stuff in different parts of Disneyland where people see things, or is it just one area?
The whole park is, or let me say was, because I am convinced that Disneyland was built as a device, a psychotronic device. Okay. Now, the way it works is there's the intersection of three telluric currents, and that intersection is to be found in the Fantasyland portion. Okay. And when Disneyland was first built, okay, the carousel used to sit smack dab on top of the intersection. Now,
Right.
the way it works is Disneyland's built in a bowl. People don't know this, but Disneyland's built in a bowl. And the carousel spinning around constantly all day during the open hours, okay,
Oh.
theoretically, hypothetically, it draws the energy up in the intersection of the telluric currents and then disperses it throughout the park. So you have this telluric energy, okay, and it throughout the whole park, but it's the strongest and most intense at that carousel. Now, they moved the carousel in 1982. I do believe that the Disneyland as a psychotronic device has been disengaged since 82. But at that time, in February of 81, when I was writing it, I was right at the heart of that telluric energy. So it's natural that
Ah,
Alfred, so to speak, would have manifested right there where the carousel
okay.
is.
So, that can those conditions don't exist anymore, so
Right.
are people still reporting anything? Have you heard anyone say, "Hey, I had a weird experience at Disneyland too," or
I'm not
I
going to
don't know.
say, I'm never going to say that. Well, I don't say never because some people are blatantly BSing us. But for the most part, um, I don't like to say, oh, people didn't have that experience because there could be some other reason that they're having that experience. But as far as what I think, and other associates and researchers and ones that aren't associates of mine think how the apparatus with the carousel worked, I don't think that that um, manifests much of anything, if anything at all, since 1982. So
Right.
there have been people who died at the park, even though they have a rule where they have an agreement with the city of Anaheim that the deaths will be pronounced at the hospital. They like to avoid deaths being pronounced in the park. A lot of people don't know that, but there are ghosts there. People.
Well, also, I don't know what's about Disneyland, but I know that Disney World actually almost is like its own little Vatican in Florida. Like, they almost have their own laws. Is
Yeah,
that not bizarre?
it's interesting. And remember how a couple of years ago that came to light with the Florida governor um, wanting to enforce. I forget if it had to do with tax stuff or something that the rest of the state has to endure,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
Disney World does not have to because they had originally made a deal that they were exempt from certain Florida laws. And a couple of years ago, that came to light, that business that they were exempt from. And I can't remember what it was, but it was one of these social agenda things that now the theo-fascist right is trying to force on us.
Yeah, it's interesting though, 'cause, I find it really strange because there's lots of people who talk about occult symbols in Disney films, and there's no lack of them. You can find it.
Right.
What I find really weird about our culture is how we have formed this theme park and we form this stuff off of fictional characters, and we have this obsession with bringing it to life. That seems almost like a ritual in of itself. It's really bizarre. Now when I sit down and think of what we're doing with these movies and the theme parks, I'm like, we're absolutely kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
a lot of it is archetypal symbolism that is found
Yeah.
throughout literature and film. Um, but I think it's gotten worse. We talked about that earlier. During Walt's lifetime, yeah, he got involved with World War II propaganda, and it's
Yep.
well known that he didn't like unions, and he took it as a personal insult when his artists wanted to unionize. But Walt Disney, when you really study him, he drank, he smoked, he cussed like a sailor. Um, but he himself was not an evil man. He was not the mysterious son of a Spanish prince, and he was never a Freemason. If I hear that one more time from somebody who doesn't do
Right.
their research. Um, so I think most of the stuff that we both agree on is after Walt died, and particularly when you
Yeah.
get into the 80s. And what I was getting to is increasingly the park does every ride has to do with one of their movies so they can tie it into a product. The Disneyland of Walt didn't do that, like the submarine ride and Journey Through Inner
Hmm.
Space, and a lot of things didn't have anything to do with any movie that he had ever made. But
Yeah.
increasingly, Disney they force feed that, like the submarine voyage is Finding Nemo, which I find annoying as hell. But I think what you said is reflected in this because they're trying to push the characters, right? The
Hmm.
anthropomorphize. I used to that word used to roll off my tongue, but
It's all
um,
good.
yeah, and
Is it anthropomorphic?
thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah, and it may be that they are doing kind of a creating tulpas in the minds of children and
Right.
adults um, by doing this. I think it's to sell more product, of course.
Well, so I was trained in graphic design, and I'm not the highest end graphic designer because I didn't continue. I'm terrible at doing stuff for corporate. And one of the things that when I was learning from one of my teachers, she always told me that you had to tell the truth with design. And when I got into world, I'm like, she's full of shit. Nobody tells the truth with design. It's all propaganda and mind control and occultism. I'm watching, I'm like, these logos or sigils, this stuff's all crazy. This is like crazy magic. And I'm like, maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she's just naive. But I realized very shortly that graphic design is not there to tell the truth. And I don't know what she was talking about, but when I look at all these, I tell people on my show not to wear logos. I mean, it's hard. There's logos everywhere. There's one on my
Yeah.
computer. It's on my phone. I'm like, God help your soul. At least don't put it in your clothing. Don't wear a mega hat. Don't wear a I'm with her hat, Hillary hat. Don't put it on you. Get it off you. I mean, it's everywhere. But I don't know, what effect do you think these logos and all these symbols have on people when they're in the park? Is it like a massive mind control factory?
Well, in the park, at for the purposes of the book, at the time, the era that the book covers,
Mhm.
there weren't all these logos.
Right.
Now, yes, corporations sponsored the rides, so for a period of time, yeah, there were um, there were some of these logos like Arco, Atlantic Richfield back then was the sponsor of the Autopia. So yeah, you had Atlantic Richfield's Autopia, but that was more an overt use because they had paid the money to make that ride possible. And then as Disney got away from that, there's been a period where it's really just their own product, their own characters and stuff. Um, so it's more actual hermetical symbolism and things from not so much the tarot as alchemy. And I have I think, a couple of sections, one chapter in particular in the book that talks about all the alchemical things, particularly in Fantasyland. You have the crows in there and what crows represent. I do an analysis of the carousel and all the alchemical symbolism with the double keys and the number of the stanchions holding up the tent that covers it.
Mhm.
The what looks like the caduceus on the top in the center pole. There's all sorts of historical, actual alchemical symbolism, so you don't even need the corporate
Right.
logoism.
I think corporate logos are way more. evil than your basic tarot deck. Like people go on about
Right.
Ouija boards and tarot deck. I'm like, dude, you've got corporate logos all over you. What are you talking about?
Well, look at when I at the time I did the research, and if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. At the time I did the research, my understanding that the Columbia clothing and apparel, they do outdoor and hiking and camping apparel, but that kind of LL Bean type of stuff. I love their stuff. I own a lot of their
Mhm.
products, but my understanding is it was started by a German family in South America. And when you look up Columbia apparel, look at their logo with the little lines. It's a
Mhm.
swastika. You know, it's a
Yeah.
swastika.
Yeah, and you'll find like, you can find that all over the place. Look, there's
Mhm.
only so many shapes, and with one thing I want people, I don't want them to get paranoid because there's only so many shapes and forms that you have. There's a book, they'll show you it all. So eventually things are going to overlap. Some people might do it unintentionally.
Yeah,
They might have something subconsciously and influence their logos, but
yeah,
these major things like World Economic Forum, that is on purpose. There is no major corporation
right.
that accidentally does a logo. The amount of work that goes into this stuff, and they release it at certain times. They do astrology for it. Don't think they don't. This is all intentional, and I can't imagine that Disneyland would be any different.
Right. And oh, by the way, as we know, it wasn't until Nazi Germany that the swastika was turned into something with negative energy and what
Yeah,
is
something
essentially
that was a
evil. Up until
yeah.
then, it's very much an ancient Vedic good luck thing. Disney, um, if you go on the Indiana Jones ride, there is still the last remaining remnant of its original sponsor, and it was in the end of the sponsor days. By the way, I think it was the last corporate sponsor, if I'm not mistaken. But Pacific Bell, the telephone company, sponsored the Indiana Jones ride. And as you're walking out of the ride, there's like this stone archway, and there's the old Pacific Bell logo symbol, which is kind of similar. Well, not exactly to the Arco thing, but it's a square with four pieces that come together. And anybody who's lived in Southern California and is older than a certain age instantly recognizes, oh, that's the old
Right.
Pac Bell symbol. And but again, for the most part, unless there's something inherent in their logo, which is what we're talking about, I think at Disneyland overtly was just supposed to be our company did this. Um,
Right, a stamp. Well, it's why I always tell people to watch out for logos, because it's called branding for a reason, because they're branding you like a cow.
uh,
They're marking you.
yeah, yeah.
You're Whenever you wear this stuff, you're a bit like you are a moo cow. Like that's what the word brand
Hmm.
means, and they're stamping you with their logo, and most people don't get that. I'm like, you know why rich people don't wear these logos? Because they understand what's going on. You don't see rich
Oh,
people with logos. You don't see them. They are very discreet about their clothing. They don't wear logos all over them. They're smart. They know.
that's interesting.
They
I'll
know
take a
they
closer
know
look
what's
at
going
that.
on. They know what's going on. You may get Hollywood celebrities that say I'm wearing Prada or whatever, whatever, but they don't wear things with giant logos. And even the higher up elites, they have tailored suits from a small tailor, and they're not flashing a logo. They get it. They know. They know that they make us wear their brands because we're their slaves.
Yeah, I could see
This
that.
is
I could
going
see
way out
that.
of Disneyland, but I tell people this all the time, like, "Stop putting that on you. Don't take Trump's hat
Well,
off. God
but
damn
not too
it."
far, because as I said, this is how Walt and Roy
Mhm.
got Disneyland built. It was because Walt didn't
Yeah,
have the money. The Disney studio
right.
did not have the money to build
So they
Disneyland out
needed
of their own pocket.
investors.
Yeah, so they came up with the idea of, hey, we'll have these investors and we'll go to these different corporations and we'll say, yeah, put your company name on it. That's why Atlantic Richfield Autopia and Monsanto
Oh
Monsanto
my god.
sponsored the Journey Through Inner Space, which is a great ride. I wish they would bring that
Do
back, but
do you think
Monsanto.
that Walt and them were just kinda they didn't understand it? They just thought, "Well, we're just trying to rum up money," and they didn't understand
Exactly.
how evil these corporations were and what they would become?
Exactly. And I know there's people that just want to demonize Walt Disney. Um, but I've studied the man for decades before I wrote my book, and I'm not defending him just to defend him. The things that he's accused of just get ridiculous, and
Are
people
not
hate it
true.
when I say it. But yeah, I see Walt as he wanted to build his park, and if using these corporations their money worked, then Roy, his brother, was the money man who made it happen. And yeah, I think they just wanted to build Walt's park. Now, all the weird mystical alchemy energy stuff, again, I argue in the book and I present this that this was C.V. Wood, Cornelius Vanderbilt Wood, who was the one that was likely behind that.
Okay, so I think a lot of times you get that, like all everybody in the FBI isn't evil, but people up the top are there people in the military that are Satanists, and maybe they are doing some weird stuff somewhere.
I, I say it in the book, and I've stood by it all these years. C.V. Wood was not an evil man. The esoteric engineering of Disneyland did not have evil intent. This is a
Okay.
man who was really into psychic stuff, and he was one of the founders of an organization called the Mind Science Foundation.
Mhm.
And one of the main multimillionaire founder was a guy named Tom Swift, who was a philanthropist, and he made his name in the hunt for the Yeti. So he was into this stuff, and they were part of the
Mhm.
co-founding of the Mind Science Foundation, and they were just into this stuff. And I truly am convinced, based on all the research I've done and the follow-up, is that what C.V. Wood was trying to do in making engineering Disneyland as a psychotronic device was to enhance the experience of being in the park. It wasn't to do
Right.
evil, dark things. So that was, in my opinion, Wood's motivation.
It feels like it's been hijacked though,
Oh,
and there are some
of
evil
course,
evil stuff. It feels like all of culture has been slowly hijacked because you can watch movies back in those days and they have a feel good stuff. I'm not saying people didn't do naughty things. I mean, we know Jack Parsons, we know there's crazy people around, but it
yeah,
feels like things have slowly been hijacked right through the 60s and 70s and turned into not very nice family entertainment. In fact, they're the hitting messages and stuff and the blatant brainwashing of children against the family, etc., is quite astounding. And so it seems like, yeah, I don't know. There's bad stories about Hollywood right from the beginning
sure,
of Hollywood's inception.
yeah.
So I don't know when Disneyland happened, but it seems like something really rotten has grown in Disneyland over the decades.
I think it. Now, I'm not blaming Michael Eisner, but from my research, it seems to have really emerged during the Michael Eisner era, which is the 80s, because I think he took over in 83 or something like that. And that's
Interesting.
when the overt stuff that you see in Lion King and
Mhm.
where characters have erections and there's subliminal stimulation, sex in the stars in the sky, the word sex, and just
Yeah.
stuff that does not belong in these children's movies. Yeah, that has really emerged after from the Michael Eisner era forward, and that's just people doing things they shouldn't be
Right.
doing.
Exactly.
So,
And have you ever done any research on the park now? Like, is there have the layout? Do they construct it the same way that this fellow originally did, or do they have that in mind, or is it just let's put as much stuff in as much space? Like, oh, this is hot topic now, so we're gonna make this new theme park. We're just expanding. It's all about business.
yeah, it's both. Okay, basically the Magic Kingdom, because there's California Adventure, of course. The basic Magic Kingdom is what it originally was laid out as far as the lands and what's where. The last time I went, because as much as I love the place, I refuse to spend the amount of money they want to go there.
Hmm.
2009, Seshari and I and his brothers visited the park, and I had never seen it in the condition. ever in my life that it was in
Yeah.
2009. There never used to be grime on the handrails anywhere. There
Yeah.
never used to be dirty trash cans and trash on the ground. They were phenomenal.
Yeah.
They would literally steam clean the streets, the pathways, and the surfaces of things every night for years and years. That everybody knew that during the hours the cleaning crews would come out, and it was like they get and paint rubbed off of things. And 2009, it was just really weird, and it was clear that it was all just, and increasingly
Mhm.
just the cash grab and cram as many people as you can get in there, and
I
it's a big
remember,
experience.
yeah, I took my son when he was 6 and 5, going on 6 in 2011,
Uh-huh.
and I never knew any of this stuff at the time. I never paid attention, so I wasn't at the park when I was at the park in the 90s, early 90s,
Hmm.
so but it's kinda almost like it's reflecting, like, that's a mini version of all of society, all of
Oh yeah.
LA. Like it's just saying, here's what we are now. We just are about
um,
money. We
yeah.
don't want to be a good culture. We don't care about our people.
You know what, particularly we're at our peak and have been getting there for decades. America really needs its serious wake up call. America needs a slap across the face, a kick right in the ass, and
Mhm,
because, wow, we are just, there's enough people full of themselves. There's enough of this going on that it's just
mhm.
peaking. And I think what you're talking about, what we're talking about here, is a reflection of that. It's people don't care. They'll just drop their trash when they're walking through Disneyland, or they'll, you know, now you never used to hear it was back in the 60s. I think a biker gang, a couple of guys got mad at each other, and oh my gosh, there was a fight at Disneyland, and that was like the one time it happened.
Yeah.
And now there's a website where you can go watch these low end, morons getting in fights, fist fights, adults at Disneyland.
Yeah.
It happens a lot.
Well, I remember we had a pass. I had special pass I got for a deal when we went, and then the pass were expired, and I had one more day, and I thought, oh, I'll just take my son again to go see. And I went to go. I think it was me, my son, and my mom, and I went. Two adults. It was like over $250 or something crazy like that, and I gasped. Like I gave him my credit card because I didn't want to disappoint my son. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh my god! I just spent like, I think I don't know, it was something like that. I can't quote, but I was shocked at the cost for 3 people just to spend the day, just to get in. That wasn't even food, and I didn't wanna disappoint him, so I just gave him my credit card and, oh,
Yeah. and
it's
and as
nuts.
wonderful as the place can be, it's not worth it. It's not worth it for
Mhm,
it. It is not worth the money that they're charging. And I don't know how
mhm.
a family of like five or more
Yeah.
can, but they do. They, from what I hear, they save up for like 5 years just to go to this darn park. For now, they make it an overnighter, but
Right.
no way, I couldn't do it.
It
I wouldn't.
everything, and it could just be because I'm old, correct me if I'm wrong, audience, but everything feels really hollow. It doesn't feel like the stories, the archetypes are loose, the whatever is in there, it's falling apart. There's something that's degrading. There's no meaning in anything anymore. It's hollow. The new Star Wars films are crap. They don't have everything's about all this political stuff. They don't concentrate on like the
It's the
original stories. The
story.
Force. The Force was about this magical thing that we really couldn't put our finger on, that this family had this power with. It's like it's gone. It's all gone. There's no meaning.
Right. And as far as the park goes in that, I'm telling you, it's like I say in the book, and I stand by it now, that deterioration, it started when they moved the carousel
When they move the
to
carousel.
redesign Fantasyland to upgrade it. And the decline started in 82 and has just increased. Um,
Has after writing your book, has anyone else come to you and told you, "Hey, Walter, I was there in the 70s," or "I had this experience," or have you had people come to you saying, "Hey, there is something?"
Very few. And it's been a long time since anyone has said, "Hey," um, but it there's been a couple. There's been a couple,
Mhm.
but the interesting thing is that was all pre 1982, and
Yeah. It's almost like that was some kind of you experienced some kind of event, not only that, but you experienced an event where it was actually moving that around was directing the park in this not so good direction
I,
in the nation. My
yeah,
God.
I asked the question in the book: was this done on purpose? Did somebody effectively or essentially assassinate the park, so to speak, or
Mhm.
disengage it on purpose because they did not want the average people? And think about how many people were already going through the park during between 1955 and 1982. They didn't want people awakening that way. Maybe someone decided, no, we don't want people, with having these experiences. Now, here's an interesting thing. Um, 1955 is when it opened. 82 is when they, in my opinion, disengaged it when the carousel was moved. That's 27
Mhm.
years now. Think of the esoteric stuff connected with the number nine,
Yeah.
27 being a multiple of nine. I see significance in that, and I wonder.
Okay.
Um,
What's the significance of 9 to you? Like, what does that mean?
Well, it's not just to me. This is known. But I was taught by my mentor years ago to pay close attention to the nines. It's an esoteric number. I mean, it's the triple three, and
Mhm.
whose number
33
is
again.
yeah, whose number is three? But Hecate, the goddess who repeatedly
Okay.
turns up in my research, no matter what I'm looking at, she shows up. I mean, it's
Oh,
weird
interesting.
when I think I'm getting
Interesting.
away from her and that kind of thing. I'll be researching something in archaeology. Oh, in my Ambrose Bierce book, oh, Hecate popped up. I've since, I think, figured out why even more. But yeah, so you asked
That
about the number
9.
nine. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the triple energy. It's
Right.
again, that's a whole other discussion or series of discussions.
Right, right. Oh, Jonocide has a 9 tattooed on him. Well, that's
He
interesting.
knows. Jonathan knows.
So, interesting because 2 of my favorite rides, obviously, I love the Haunted Mansion and I like
Mhm.
Pirates of the Caribbean, and I heard
Right.
that Pirates of the Caribbean actually has some real human bones there. Have you heard that?
Yeah, yeah. And I heard it within the context of they bought skeletons from a medical supply company
Yeah,
because they wanted it to be real.
look
So it's
real.
like, I think that's kind of cool.
It's it's cool, but I'm like, "Hey, I guess, I don't know." It's interesting. I was like, "Wow." Just like Poltergeist, apparently, those were real skeletons in that pool in that movie that poor woman had to swim with.
Yeah,
Yee.
Joe Beth Williams.
Jo Beth Williams, yeah. Okay, so here's the one thing, this is getting into conspiracy theory land. There's a couple of conspiracy theories we can kinda cover outside ley lines. It's sad to know that moving that carousel might have altered that and no one will experience that again the way you
Mhm,
did. I'm
mhm.
kinda sad about that, but there's other conspiracy theories. The biggest one is about Walt Disney and his death and that they froze him to revive him. What the heck is up with that? What's your opinion on that?
That's just urban legend, apocryphal tale.
So
Um,
he's buried.
oh, he's
He
buried
is
out at,
properly buried.
I think it's Forest Lawn. I visited his gravesite.
Right.
Um, L. Frank Baum is there too, by the way, and
Oh,
all sorts
nice.
of interesting people. But now people will say, well, his body's not really in that grave. Okay. Um, but yeah, I think that's, I don't know which, well, I do know which story, but I don't know when the Walt Disney's head frozen exactly started. Um, Before or after the company that for a while was doing that or claiming that they were going to put people in cryogenic, and Ted Williams, the famous baseball player, fighter pilot, and sportsman, um, he, I think, actually did that. When he died, his remains were in this
Yeah.
cryogenic thing, and it was a big. There was a big legal battle involving his family regarding his remains and stuff. So, I don't know when the Walt Disney's Head is Frozen story actually started, but I mean, I started hearing about it years ago. So,
Oh yeah, it's just odd because you have all these technocrats and crazy, and I think and these dark enlightenment psychos that are running the world now, and their goal is to live forever and store themselves in some kind of cloud, or that's one of the that's how they're thinking. So I find it weird that you get these stories about people being frozen that aren't true, and then all these decades later, here we are, people are being frozen. This is real. People
right?
want to have their brain in a cloud or in a robot, and I'm going,
Well,
what timeline did I just hop
yeah,
on?
think about this. The Haunted Mansion opened in 1969, and I'll bet you the Walt Disney Frozen Head story didn't start until after 69, and it was probably started and egged on by when people are in the Madame Leota seance part of the Haunted Mansion ride, where the woman, Madame Leota's head is in the crystal ball. I'll bet that inspired the stories of Walt Disney's head in a glass thing. Underneath Space Mountain was the last version that I had heard. Um, so you have to. People say to me, they go, "How can you say that? You propose all these wild, crazy things, and you believe in things." I'm like, "Yes, I do, but you still have to use discernment, right?" You know,
Right.
I believe in UFOs, but I don't believe every UFO sighting story that I hear. Sorry, folks. I believe in ghosts. I believe ghosts are real. But I don't believe every story I hear, and neither should anyone else. You have to use
Right.
discernment.
Okay. Yeah, it is crazy though. I wonder, okay, sometimes I think people come up with this stuff and I think it influences people and
Hmm.
they make it happen. Like
Yeah.
you hear all these techno guys, and I'm like, I think they're sniffing the pages of Lord of the Rings, except for they don't want to be the hobbits, they want to be Sauron or something.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Like
think
they're
about it.
crazy.
Cell phones, literally, the guys who came up with practical cell phones, particularly when they had the flip kind, they
Right.
were Star Trek geeks when they were kids,
Mhm.
and they literally wanted to create the communicator. I mean, this is in a couple of documentaries. They talk with these guys. They're older now. They're like, "Hey, we literally thought it would be cool if we created, the communicator," and so
Mhm.
that's one of
Well,
the more overt ones that's
yeah,
harmless, I think.
you can see a lot of stuff in Stanley Kubrick that we now have, like in some of his movies. It's like it was crude version of it. It wasn't as sleek in design. It was for the time, but it was still like we have something that's like an iPad or whatever it is. It's
Hmm.
there. We're there's stuff that's there. So I also think that they're planning this long ahead of time because I know they have long these elites, these parks, and they plan things. They don't just nilly willy throw things out.
Right, right. I think they're also inspired by uh, uh, ancient lore.
Mhm.
For instance, when you hear stuff like the Emerald Tablet, or you hear stuff, oh, and these beings came from somewhere else, and they Emerald Tablet or any kind of thing like that. Well, like you said, eventually that leads to the iPad and things like that, and like we talked about more recently, the communicator from TV to the cell phone. But they are constantly, and have been, the elites, um, been digging into the lost technology. They look at lore, like things like
Mhm.
flying machines mentioned in the Vedic scripture. They don't look at that as fantasy and mythology. They say, no, what it is there's a nugget of truth to that. Somebody was
This is
describing
lost
something that
knowledge.
yeah. And so we know that through the secret societies, they've been searching for this stuff. That's where the whole discussion about the Sonora Aero Club that Charles Delshow wrote about, flying machines, anti-gravity flying machines in the 1850s. This wasn't something from reverse engineered ET. For God's sake, I'm so tired of that. This was the product. I'm basing this on the research I did and others have done. This was the product of centuries and ages of private organization digging out of these lost technologies and little baby steps developing them.
So Jonacide says the frozen head thing started in 67 after. Walt's death.
It started in
Very
67.
in
Okay.
67.
Who started it? Does it
Well, I
say?
don't know. Does it say genocide who started it? There's another thing that's going on, and this is actually based on fact because I looked it up about the child traffic. I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to go
Okay.
smaller. I'm just going to share this article called Operation Child Protector. There
Mhm.
was, it's from 2021, criminal defense, sex crimes, uh, pump free law. It says a total of 17 people were arrested in the Polk County Sheriff's Office sting Operation Child Protector last week. The group included 3 employees of Walt Disney World, were charged with a total of 49 felonies and 2 misdemeanors, including traveling to meet a minor for sex, attempted lewd battery, and use of a computer to seduce a child, and transmission of material harmful to a child. Police caught the offenders by posing as 13 and 14-year-old children on dating sites. It was reported that 16 of the individuals were from Central Florida, except for one man who traveled for the meetup from Los Angeles, and only 3 of them were employees of Disney World. I think this might be where this whole child trafficking thing comes up because now people are saying that Disney World has been used for child trafficking, and I don't doubt that people take
Right.
advantage of that and that there's bad players and people are abused in these
Right.
things and there's bad working conditions. I don't doubt any of that,
Sure.
but I think this might be where people think that the whole park is a
Yeah, that the Disney Corporation is involved in this because that's what people do. They just jump to stupid conclusions, instead of again using their heads, using discernment because it's more fun, right? In their twisted fun for people to exaggerate. Oh my gosh, it's this big organizational corporate thing that they do, and uh, yeah, I
well,
exactly.
and look at the Epstein files, you just never know. Like there's pictures of like Epstein, Ghislaine, it doesn't they could have been trying to get in. Like they could have been
Oh sure.
sticking themselves in different places. We don't know. It's possible.
Exactly, taking advantage of the access to children, right? it's
Yeah.
it's the same reason creeps will hang around a playground, right?
Yeah.
When I was for years, sir, I worked for Uncle Sam, as you know, and one of the rules in surveillance is you do not stake out or set up on surveillance anywhere near a school. You don't do it around schools or banks
Okay.
because if you're sitting near a bank, they're going to think you're a bank robber casing the joint. But you just
Right.
don't, like, if you're following a guy and he goes into a school or anywhere near a school, the team will back out and go to
Mhm.
all the ingress and egress points to and from that school, but we will
Mhm.
not set up. And as a PI, I if somebody I'm watching goes to pick up their kid from school, I'm a block away, or I'm a block away where
Right.
I can at least see. I'm not going to be anywhere near that school because you know that's what the creeps do. So naturally, a place like Disneyland, my gosh, of course they're going to have some of their people working in a place like that.
So Genocide's referencing the head. He's saying National Spotlight claimed to have snuck into St. Joseph's Hospital in Burbank, and he alleged that he saw Disney in a cryogenic cylinder to be revived at a later date. Now, this is a good one, and I want to touch this because I don't doubt this one at all. My husband is saying there's supposedly an MK Ultra connection to Disneyland, and that is
Yeah,
believable.
yes, it is.
100%. Thank you for bringing
Absolutely.
that up, Mike.
Yes, yeah, good call, Mike. That's a good one
Touch on
because I
that.
would I would agree with that, of course, because think about it. Think about it. The Disneys really effectively started going at Disneyland in the early 50s. Remember, it opened in 1955. They broke ground 1 year in 1954, and they incredibly, now it was sparse compared to what it became and what it is now, but still they were building it physically only for 1 year. So it was the early 50s. Now remember, the MK Ultra program was started in effect by what, 1950 to 52, something like that. And
Mhm.
SRI certainly had its connections or fingers in the MK Ultra development process. So again, here you have a guy like C.V. Wood, one of the founders of the Mind Science Foundation and an enthusiast in this. I, I would have no doubt that he was, to some level, briefed up on MK Ultra or its principles. And it makes sense to me that in what he did to engineer Disneyland into this psychotronic device, that MK Ultra knowledge went into it. And think about the GATE program started. It started in the early '60s, I think, or the mid '60s.
Mm.
So think of the children in that, like me, growing up in Southern California. We'd go to Disneyland when I was a little kid at least once a year, and then when I got old enough to drive, it was as many times as I could go. So you're being exposed to whatever
Mhm.
MK Ultra stuff is there.
Yeah, because I know the CIA is in with a lot of Hollywood. Like we know that, and I think
Yeah,
when they first start this stuff out, they experiment closely with people, but after a while, if it's all over and it's all in the society within the movies, you don't really need to do MK Ultra directly on all your citizens. They just
right.
get contaminated with it by proxy just by watching things and hanging
Sure.
around people and being exposed to the culture, especially when you find a method that works.
It's okay. Think of human beings like our minds, our psyches, our antenna. Okay,
Mhm.
our antennas, and human beings in the millions are out there walking around, and what you do is you put your beam, your signal beam, out there, just a spread wide beam, and just think of it as a frequency or whatever, but not all antenna are going to pick it up. And what you want to do is observe to see which antenna received the signal, because maybe they'll stop, maybe they'll look around in a way that others aren't. And it's like, oh, there's one, there's one. Maybe stuff like this was how they were identifying people who would pick up the signal, because maybe they're more uh, their skills in this or just more naturally refined. I don't. They're more tuned
Mhm.
into this stuff. Kind of like the way they cast a net with the GATE program to see which kids met
Yep.
the level they were looking for, and maybe something like what CV Wood did with Disneyland. Maybe it didn't work on most people. Maybe only some people. Hey, there's something funny going on here, and then they note those people for however they learn about them, picking up on it. Anyway,
Yeah, it's just it's interesting how that happens, and I was watching some videos and reading some stuff because now it's not just it's at a different stage now. They have graphene in stuff that they think they're connecting with stuff. There's also when they do seeding, and I just watched a woman who's talking about her documentary, says it's real. The weather changing. They put aluminum and all this stuff that is in our bodies that could actually be causing autism, could be causing all sorts of things we don't know. And
right.
they have graphene that they're putting in the vaccinations. Those are things that they're thinking that they're using for mind control eventually that could connect with all this web technology that they're doing. You just never know, and so the MK Ultra doesn't it's changing. We don't they're not even going to have to experiment on us in a level or even at a park cuz it's all in our bodies. We're merging with the digital, like Disneyland will be digital. Everything will be merged into
Well,
this digital world.
even worse than television. Look how many of us are doing this all day.
Yep.
And so now all they have to do is broadcast something through our phones to control us subliminally.
Yeah.
Um, and we're not going to. I remember when I first got a smartphone, I was
Right?
reluctant, and they said, Walter, get a smartphone. And I'm like, they go, no, you'll love it. It's like, it's the access to the internet, stuff like that. I'm like, I have my computer for that. I was being a bit of a Luddite. And I
Mhm.
said, no, I'm going to get one, but I'm not going to sit there online on my phone.
Mhm.
Yeah, right. I'm one of
That's
the worst offenders, but
that's why I like to do long form videos. I
Yeah,
do some reels, but I hate doing them because reels, the short reels is what's really like they're
yeah,
bad for your brain. I heard they're really bad and you get addicted to scrolling them like flick 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 flick.
yeah.
But
I
this
agree
whole
with you.
it's addictive and you don't ever really get to really understand a topic. Like they're good for advertisement, like, "Hey,
Sure.
go and watch this," but that's
Yeah,
not how most people do it. It's crazy stuff. But the Disneyland stuff, it's like some people are saying it is like so they own everything now. Like they own Star Wars, they own everything. And I don't know where does this like I don't do you think obviously Walt never saw it going this way.
no, and I don't think, I like to think we can't tell exactly, but Lillian, his wife, is a good measure of what would Walt have thought. And Lillian, who lived, did she live to be 100? I can't remember, but she lived into this century. Um, she she was pretty vocal. In fact, for many years, the Disney Corporation would be cautious. They wanted Lillian's approval because she kind of
Mhm.
spoke for Walt's opinion.
Right.
And she was very disapproving of a lot of stuff that the Disney Corporation was doing
Mhm.
from the 90s on through. And she didn't like it. And, her and Walt were real close and thought alike. And so I think that Walt would not have approved of this monopolization.
Mhm.
He just truly, you know, smoking, drinking, cussing, being anti-union. you
Right,
know,
right, right,
um,
right.
he would, he would, he would, he just wanted to entertain people, kids
Mhm.
and adults. Ultimately,
S Some of the well, there's some spooky stuff that came out, like, there's some stuff that I like it was way after he passed away,
mhm,
like, Watchers in the Wood,
mhm.
Escape to Witch Mountain, like, some
The
of those
Black
movies,
Cauldron.
I like when they do spooky stuff back in the days, now it's like, it sucks, it's lame.
Yeah.
They knew how to do spooky stuff in the '70s.
Remember the Black Cauldron? I think late
Mhm.
'70s, early '80s, and it has some genuinely, creepy
Dark.
type stuff. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Uh,
Well, I think the devious like, I don't it's not bad to show your children sort of dark things. I think
right.
the important part is that you have to clearly define evil and good, and our
Yes.
society is not doing that anymore. It's confusing evil and good, and it's merging things in there's no clear definition. It's like everything that's good about Western civilization, they're like, "It's crap, and we're gonna destroy it."
Right. Right. I'm one of those. I have no problem being critical of Western civilization where, you should be, but I'm not one of those I mean, it's funny how people who are critical of Western civilization are very much users of its products.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
if it's that bothersome to you, let's stop using the things that it has
But
brought to the world.
In China, they teach them like that Professor Zhang, they teach them Western civilization stuff, Shakespeare,
Yep,
Dante, all that stuff. They
yep,
love it. They can't understand why we're trashing our civilization. And we're like, we're so evil. And the Chinese people, they're like, this is great because we were truth tellers. We were trying to say something truthful about how we're
yeah.
experiencing the world. And not every civilization did that.
We're trashing our what is virtuous about us, and we're exalting the trash about us.
Yeah. Well,
And
I don't think,
and on the good and
trash.
evil thing, the problem with not teaching between good and evil is um, the definition of what's evil is very intensely subjective right now, and evil
Yeah.
has become just that which does not agree with your personal superstitions or
Yeah.
faith or
Yeah.
belief. Oh, that religion is different, so it's evil, it's of the
Yeah.
devil. Or all these people are evil because of a few examples. of
They dress like little goths, so they have to be evil. They wore black clothing, something really
right.
silly. Rather than, how about these politicians and all these corrupt evil people who pretend to be good and smile in your face and say they're going to do things for you, and then they're caught on the Epstein list and they're bombing other countries. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. And let's base what is evil on someone's the actions they take. If they're doing bad things, if they're doing evil things, well, that's how you define it. Not because, as you said, they dress differently or they worship differently. We don't
Yeah.
get to just arbitrarily um,
The
just
problem
because
with
we
our
don't do
world
something is evil.
is 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 the propaganda so good
Yeah.
that they have such a good outside look that you don't actually know the horrible things they're doing underneath, and that's the nuance of evil.
And it's there is no better um, thing to point to in what we're talking about than this epidemic of narcissism
Mhm. Yeah, we know.
that is going on. It
Mhm.
is, it's just astonishing um, what these people do. And you're right, you hit the nail on the head. They project the mask. Um,
Mhm.
my first experience with it was as an agent in the military. And anyone any veteran can tell you this. You can have, I learned as an agent because we're criminal investigators. This was my
Mhm.
first real up close lesson in this. You can have the chief master sergeant or the bird colonel who just looks shining white and his record's perfect, his performance, and just looks like the greatest guy in the world. And he's really, a jerk or a monster behind that all. And in the military culture, because you can wear that mask of, you everything, you check all the boxes and it looks good. But really, what you're hiding is, you know, something that's kind of rotten inside. And that was my first experience with that. Um,
Yes.
uh, and then I
Yeah.
I've had other experiences that
Well,
it's
yeah.
really awful out there.
What narcissists do, and you'll watch this at the beginning when you know them, watch them, they'll mirror you. That's why what they say afterwards, you realize it's doesn't make any sense. So they
Right.
mirror, so they lure you in. So because they'll offer you what you want because they're
Mm-hmm.
analyzing you, and they'll mirror
Yep.
you. And then once they get you in, then they take all who they really are
Yep.
and all the other stuff, and then they project it on you. So mirror, project. It's a really awful process, but that's exactly what they do. That is exactly why you see all this stuff in Hollywood and entertainment and Disneyland today. They're mirroring what we want, but the
Yeah.
reality and the projection is far grim, far more grim because everything. The bottom line is a dollar. The bottom line is
Yeah.
profit, not
Well,
human. The greatness of humans.
and the dangerous part of what they're doing is if you don't go along with the plan, then comes the discard phase, and that's when they try to
Smear
destroy
campaign.
you, destroy your
Yeah.
character, destroy your reputation, and they'll do whatever drastic thing they feel they need to do. And
Yeah.
that's where political
Mm.
narcissists are the most dangerous because they're the ones with the power. And
And they'll destroy everything.
yeah, and we got, unfortunately, we got that going on right now. Um,
We
I'm looking
do.
at that.
Unfortunately, we do. And I wish we didn't. I wish for all politicians to do a good job, but apparently it's just an escalation of a giant clusterfuck.
They occasionally need to be reminded who they're supposed to be working for. And
Well, here's the thing, and I was just listening to this the other day, and this isn't Disneyland. We'll tie up with Disneyland when we end it. Is the politicians are considered lowly. They don't work for us. They are just representatives, and they represent the billionaires. And the billionaires think they're lowly too. They're just their pawns, and so
yeah,
they do what they're paid money to. This is why Charlie Kirk is gone now. Don't think a kid shot him. He's gone because the billionaire said, "Hey, we pay you to do all this manipulation and lure these people into your fucking political cult that's running as whatever, and you didn't do it, so bye-bye, boy." And
Yeah,
that's
you
why
were
you can't take their money. That's why you can't go and engage with these people at this level of evil, because you will be gone. They own you. You're their little slave. And so they don't look at politicians as highly at all, which is
right.
the irony, which is the
Yeah,
irony.
yeah, and then they'll take full advantage of when they've erased you.
Mhm.
Um, like you mentioned, Charlie Kirk. Just folks, I'll throw a name
Mhm.
out there: Horst Wessel. You look up Horst
Mhm.
Wessel, you'll understand everything you need to know about Charlie Kirk, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and the same with Disneyland. It's funny because Disneyland seems to be like this little sort of microcosm of as a larger thing. It's its
Mm-hmm.
own little world, but the decline of it is kind of reflecting decline of our nation. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
sad that no one will ever get to experience that. Is there other sites, have you heard anything about other sites being arranged in a way that like Disney Tokyo or Paris? Is there any phenomena about those other sites or special markers?
Short of short of doing an in-depth analysis on the Disney parks outside of the U.S., we did look at Disney World. We didn't find it to be enough
Mhm.
to claim it as like Disneyland. CV Wood, after Walt fired him, Walt didn't like that CV Wood was marketing himself in interviews as the man who built Disneyland. that's where that's where
Oh.
Walter Pride came in. He's like, "Hey, wait a minute, pal." So he fired him, and Wood built three more parks. One of which was involved in the building of three more parks, and one of them is still open, and that's or two of them. I'm sorry, but the first one was Six Flags over. Is it? It's one of the Texas ones in Dallas. The Dallas area because it's still in the 33 area. And then there's
Interesting.
one in Colorado, I'm pretty sure, which has changed names over the decades. And then there was one back east which closed years ago, but neither one of those have produced the same weirdness
Integratron.
or aura as Disneyland in Anaheim.
Well, there's obviously something special about Anaheim.
Well, I argue that it's the intersection of the three telluric currents. I think that's why
Yeah.
CV would strongly push them to build it in Anaheim. And I think that's why the development some people would say, well, of course they built Disneyland there because look at it now, all the population and the crossroads of Southern California. Well, it wasn't that at the time. I think there were some indicators that it was going to become that. Okay. And
Mhm.
I think it certainly did become that greatly as a result of Disneyland being built there and some of the other things. So, you know, but SRI,
Now it's askew.
whatever they know, they knew stuff then. And
Well, this has been a fascinating show. Where can people, obviously, I said at the beginning, but I want you to reiterate where people can get all your books, including the Latitude 33.
okay, yes, as you said earlier, I am not affiliated with WalterBosley.com, and the last I checked, it's now inactive. So, but I'm not affiliated with that. So if it returns or whatever, it's not me. I'll let you know if it's me. My books also are not at Amazon. I do not sell my books at Amazon. They are terrible for indie authors and small press
Right.
publishers compared to having my own label and being my own company. My stuff is at lulu.com, lulu.com. If you want to buy my books, go there. And I'm also at the Walter Bosley channel on YouTube.
There you go. Um, Todd Wood says, didn't CV Wood recreate London Bridge in Arizona?
Recreate. London Bridge was disassembled piece by piece and transported um, brought to Arizona, and that's the actual original London Bridge. And
That was
yes,
from
CV
Disneyland?
Wood helped. The pardon?
It was originally in Disneyland?
No, it was originally
No,
in
it was.
England.
Oh, the actual London Bridge?
Yeah.
I never heard that
Now
before.
I'll triple check that, but when I did the research and stuff, they disassembled
Oh
it
yeah.
and brought it
He
to
wants you to plug California on your channel with Todd Wood and Walter Bosley, which I will be going on in April. So,
Yep, California. You guys got to check that out. And we're going to be starting a series with the Rotting Jewels, Dana, where we analyze each episode. We analyze an episode of True Detective season 1.
that sounds fascinating. That sounds exciting. All right. Well, guys, this was a great show. Go check out Walter's book. Go check out Walter's channel, and don't forget to watch California. Hold on. Just in the green room there, Walter. I'll pop back in there in just a second.
Okay.
All right. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to close out for now. We definitely have a show next Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Mountain Time. I'll probably figure out what the topic's going to be this week. I'm not too sure. And hopefully I'll get a guest on for April. I'm going to try to have one guest a month. That's my going rate here, but we'll see what's going cuz I'm busy working and things are going. It's spring, I like to do some yard work. So we will see, but I appreciate you guys. We had a good audience in here tonight. All the questions were amazing. And yeah, it's been a slice. Theclusterfuck.com. You can get all the links to the show. We are streaming, of course, on YouTube, which you should subscribe to, Facebook, Twitch, Substack, and Kick. All the links are on the website, guys. Cheers. I will see you next Sunday.